Yeah! Yo, what's up, people? So we are gonna get started on this lantern project, this Tiki lantern for our Raku process. So let me show you some examples. Look at this Raku guy. Look at that glaze on there. That copper glaze. Check out the glaze on there, that copper glaze. Oh yeah, baby. Tiki! 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 Okay guys, so I got my chunk of clay here, and I am going to turn this into a slab. I don't need any tools for this. I'm gonna use the throwing method to make my slab here. So what I'm gonna do is on whatever surface, I'm gonna throw this clay down. And if you watch what happens, it's as I throw this, it's starting to stretch out already. I'm throwing this on an angle, and as I do that, it starts to stretch out. Okay? So before we get too far in this, before I just start stretching, I want to think about what I'm making. What I'm trying to make is a cylinder that is going to be my lantern. Okay? So when I make this cylinder form, or this slab for my cylinder form, I want this to be a little bit longer, but I also want to think about the thickness of this too. Because when I roll this into a cylinder form, the thickness is going to be the height. Okay? So as I throw this, I'm going to stretch it out both ways until it's a little bit longer and thicker than what I think I need. Okay? So when you throw a slab like this to stretch it out, I want to throw it forward, and I let the bottom end hit so that it catches and stops, and that's where that mechanism of stretching comes from. Okay? So you can kind of see it stretching here. Now I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to kind of keep rotating it as I do this. So it's stretching both ways. Woo! It's getting thin there. Yeah, boy. So we're always looking for and watching this to make sure that it gets to the right thickness. So remember, in this studio, we're looking for 1/4 of an inch thickness. Our rule of thumb is pinky finger thick. Okay, so that's what we're looking for here. This is starting to get kind of thin. So I could also, this is really thin right here. It's a little bit thick over here. So what I'm gonna do now is cut this, use this section for my lantern body, and I'm gonna use this little section for my bottom. So I'm gonna cut this. Cutting it like this also makes it a little bit more manageable. It's getting a little bit too long for me to pick up. As it thins out, it's harder to handle. Let's work on this right now. So check it out. If you guys look at the slab here, it's stretched out. So clay, ceramic, a fine material. It's a particulate. So it's kind of stretching out the particulate as it goes, and it almost looks like it's like ripping or coming apart. So we need to tend to that. So remember, we said with every project there is in that project somewhere a bit of compression, and we usually compress by smoothing. So with most every project, I'm going to smooth it out first so that I compress that surface, and that reduces the likelihood of cracking. So I'm using this rib that we made out of a credit card, a hard plastic, to smooth this out. So again, I'm smoothing it first. Smoothing equals compression. So I smooth that side. I'm gonna flip this bad boy. Smooth that other side. Oh yeah, baby. Looking nice. I'm going to go in multiple directions. I'm noticing that there's a little high part right here. It's not totally the same thickness. As long as it's close, I'm okay with that. If it's wildly different, that might be an issue. Might have to throw it a little bit more. So here are my two pieces. This piece is going to be my slab bottom, and this piece is going to be my body. I didn't smooth this out yet, but I want to kind of think about this for a second before I do anything else to it. This slab is laid out, and I'm about to put it into its cylinder shape. But before I do that, I want to think about, is there anything I can do to this surface before it's in its cylinder shape? And I think there is. I think I have an idea. Let's go try something. Okay guys, so we are working on our slab construction for this Tiki project, right? So we're thinking about subtractive and additive processes. So subtractive I sometimes think about as like cutting away, cutting stuff out, or pressing into the surface and making like impressions or caverns or roughing up the surface. So I'm outside looking at all these textures and wondering if there's something that I can do here. So I think I found a good spot. So I think I'm gonna use this piece of concrete right here to add some texture to my surface. So I'm gonna take this slab that I just made inside, and I'm just gonna do one more drop. Boom. Right on top of there. And maybe I'll even use my rib tool to smooth it out. And push it into those to help make a varied surface and pick up some of those textures. Woo! That is gonna be gnarly. Tell you what, I'm liking that. I wonder if I could do anything else. Is that my car? Hey, let's try this out. I wonder how this will work. Take my slab here. I'm trying. This ain't working. Okay, so that wasn't all great. I admit it. But I tried something and made some discoveries. So I am really happy with the way that this gravel impression turned out. Look at that. Okay, so I have that varied surface. That's gonna make an awesome pumpkin tiki texture. What we want to do now is get this into the shape we want and let it firm up so we can keep working on it. So what I'm going to do is make some simple basic cuts just to be able to handle this and get it into a better position. On these guys, I like that uneven rim. I think it looks nice how it overlaps. So I'll show you how I do that. This is going to be the height of my lantern. This is going to roll up into my cylinder shape. So right now I'm going to make a straight line cut. This is going to be my bottom edge. This piece right here, I'm going to try to save that. So I'm not going to ball it up and smash it. So I'm going to try to roll this into the biggest cylinder shape that I can. If these are too small, they can be really difficult to work with. So I would say something with the inside diameter that's bigger than a pop can would be a great idea. So it's not too small, okay? So this looks like a good chunk that I've got here. I'm starting to have this break right here. This could be really fun to save. So yeah, let's try it. I'm going to try to save this piece. So I'm going to cut this end right here like this. I'm going to save these pieces. And then from here, I'm going to make, to get this varied rim, I don't want to have a parallel line. I'm going to draw a diagonal line that comes down at an angle. So, just like that. Okay? When I work like this, these pieces a lot of times are bigger than they're going to be, so I might cut off a little bit at the ends. So I'm going to try to handle this really carefully, but I know that I'm going to handle it mostly on the ends, and if I need to cut those off, that's okay. So before I pick this up, I want to get the surface ready that I'm going to set this on. So this is my board. So before I pick this up, I'm going to get my bottom ready right here. So I didn't smooth this out, and it's not too thick right now. I'd say actually it's pretty perfect. It's about the thickness of my pinky. This is actually a little bit on the thinner side. So I'm going to leave this one as is. So I'm going to smooth this out really good first on my board. So I'm getting this set here. Now, when I pick this up, the body, and get it into position, everything's ready to be stored. So I'm going to grab this really carefully. I'm going to support this corner because there's this rip here. I don't want that to hang. And I'm going to very carefully, oops, that ripped off, so that didn't make it. I'm going to very carefully, trying not to touch this too much, or manhandle it. I'm going to put this into a round-ish shape. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, but just roundish enough so we can store this. If it's in a roughed out cylinder shape, it will be really nice and structurally sound, kind of like an arch form, to be able to cover it now with plastic. Okay, so now we've got this body roughed out. I put some texture on it. I got my bottom, I got my body. I got these extra pieces. I'm going to put these all around this. I've got this stored on the wood. So remember, we talked about right now, we're collecting our pieces and waiting for them to firm up. So I'm putting it on the wood, which will absorb moisture out of this while we're letting it dry. And then we can wrap it differently later. But right now we want it to firm up a little bit, so we're storing it on the wood. Okay guys, so now we've got the parts that we need to build this project. So remember, we've said working in ceramics, building, constructing out of clay is in 3 phases. So one is collecting all the parts you need using wet clay. So forming those generalized pieces, collecting those basic shapes that you think you're going to need. Step 2, phase 2, is when the clay is leather hard, when it's firmed up and it's leather hard, then we can start to assemble the parts. But only when it's firmed up. If it's too soft, it's really difficult to work with. So we want to wait until the clay is leather hard. The last step is, once it's assembled, then we can go over and we can start to clean this up really well, do the detail work, the small parts. But only after it's basically assembled do we want to be really focusing on the small bits and the details and the finalization of this. So collecting your parts, assembling it, and then the cleanup and detailing. Okay, so here we are with our, we've collected all our parts and we're ready to wait for this to firm up. Which one of you is going to be my best friend? Is it the old timer here? He's got a smile that stretches for days. These guys I made last year, we didn't get to fire because things got weird. With a new guy sleeping in his plastic blanket. The new guy here, he's kinda quiet. We don't know much about him yet. We'll see. Ah!